Right, let's talk about this. Last night we talked about the lack of policing, the lack of police authority. You know, we've had the police woman all over the press again today because she was championing the cause of those demonstrating about the Palestinians.
She became one of the demonstrators.
She became a demonstrator. We don't need that. We don't need police
Poacher turned
officers
gamekeeper.
making political points, taking the knee or dancing.
Well, they're going to glue themselves to trains next time. I mean,
well, maybe they will. Maybe they'll be gluing themselves to the road. What was that one down the road in
smashing
Tower
windows?
Bridge?
I mean, the world's gone mad.
Yeah. Well, apparently, police recruits lacking in life experience. Now, this annoys me more than you can tell. Now, I'm not going to shout too much because I think my voice is going from doing it too much. But graduate police recruits, first of all, I don't believe we should have graduates going into the police force. No. I mean, I don't want to be rude because probably everybody in the over there, they're all probably graduates, okay? But you don't need a university degree for an enormous amount of things. And quite frankly, the state of Britain's university...
It softens them, doesn't it? It softens people.
Makes them soft, So graduate police recruits are taken aback by violence. Sadly lacking in life experience.
They don't like it.
No, and aren't prepared to work nights and weekends, according to Nick Adderley, the chief constable of where is he? The chief constable of West Country, I think.
Oh, is he?
Is he?
Right.
Maybe somebody out there would actually feed me the information instead of talking to each other and looking out of the window. Thank you.
Discipline.
Good. More discipline. Yeah. So. Chief Constable Audley made the comments whilst voicing his strong feelings against the College of Policing's plans to require all recruits to gain a degree before joining the force. Stupid, balmy, idiotic, ridiculous. So now you get a bunch of woke police officers who are never around. So the demonstrations that happened in cities around this country over the last week were not properly policed. They're like school teachers.
Well, they ran away. Do you remember when they ran away?
Yeah.
There was actually about 6 months ago. There was, I think, there was the one where the police actually ran away.
I've always been a big supporter of the police, but I am getting more and more fed up with the fact that most of them seem to be useless and not strong enough to do the job. Right?
There used to be a lot of ex-military people would be in there. It's not like that anymore.
No, well, that's where you need to get your police from. Yeah. And we don't want snivelling graduates coming out soft, we want...
Scared of violence. You can't have police that are scared of violence. You used to see a lot of police would get involved physically, wouldn't you? Now they seem to reach for the taser very quickly.
And they're not very good at that either. Let's talk to Peter Bleksley, former Metropolitan Police...
Bleksley.
What did I say?
Bleksley.
Bleksley?
Bleksley, yeah.
You call me Wales.
He must be very tired. That's your name, Wales, James Wales.
No, it's no S on it, so don't start talking hashish. Yeah. Right, OK, let's talk to Peter. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen, and it's always a pleasure to be able to be heard by your audience. Thank you.
Well, listen, I hopefully we're not being too hard on some of these new police recruits, but becoming a police officer and then being taken aback by the fact that it can be quite a violent job says to me that they're actually employing the wrong people. And just because you're a university graduate doesn't particularly make you ideal for the police force, doesn't particularly make you a very intelligent person. I find very well-educated people not nearly as intelligent as some who've actually been working all their lives.
I completely agree with you, James, when you say that a university degree should not be a prerequisite for joining the police service. Absolutely not. A PhD in yoghurt weaving is not going to prepare you for the mean streets of our cities or even a rural area wheresoever you may have to do what is invariably a very challenging job. Nick Adderley, who is the Chief Constable of Northamptonshire, by the way, is about as much of a copper's copper as you get these days. He's very well liked by his own troops, and he has a reputation across the nation of being a man who is known for straight talking. And that, of course, is a very welcome and bit of a rarity these days. What we do actually need is proper training for our police. When I joined, you had 16 weeks at Hendon. Get your hair cut, shine your boots, press your trousers and your shirt, get called into order, and you had lots of practical training, not only classroom training. Well, in the 21st century now, police training has been cut to the bone so that in some forces they only get 6 weeks of initial training in comparison to the 16 that we had. And consequently, you often find that these raw police officers leave training and they are working alongside other probationary officers. So training, a loss of experience, they are really two of the major issues.
I like to chat to people, it's obvious. And I was in Soho not long ago, and I had a little chat with a police officer there who wasn't really sure what he was doing. He was in a bunch of what they call COVID marshals, loads of people sitting there and enjoying. And I said, what are you, so we're just here in case any trouble starts. And there were literally thousands of people around. I said, what are you going to do if any trouble starts? And he looked at me blankly, and I said, no, I'm just interested. He said, well, we're police officers. I said, yeah, but if 1,000 people don't want you to touch them, what is one police officer going to do? And he didn't really have an answer. In fact, he said to me,
yeah.
Move along, sir.
You're lucky, yeah.
But
I'm surprised you didn't say to him, or what? Come on, James.
Come on, James. Where does he stand up to it? You can't have that.
Guys, if I did that, I'd be in the newspaper tomorrow, and you'd be having a good laugh, I know.
Yes.
So, no, the guy's there.
Didn't you say, do you know who I am? You normally do that.
I'd never do that. You are just shut up.
Normally you do that.
Sorry about this. He's spreading rumours that I'm engaged to Pablo, my houseboy.
I thought you don't want to talk about it.
I don't have a houseboy, and he's not called Pablo. Anyway, never mind.
He's not Pablo.
So what are we going to do about this? What are we, Peter, going to do about this? Because we can't carry on like this. I mean, the woman who was joining in with the demonstration the other day and then said, long live Palestine or whatever. I mean, presumably she's been sacked.
Well, I mean, she broke what for me is the cardinal rule of policing, and that is that you remain impartial. There should be no taking of the knee. There should be no public expression of allegiances to any party or group. What you should be is there for everyone, and you can only achieve that and be perceived by the public to being there for everyone if you remain staunchly impartial. It's absolutely crucial, and things like that are utterly foolish and have no place.
And embarrassing for other police, isn't it? It's embarrassing.
Well, I'm told she's under investigation. I'm not really sure what that means, but you just have to look at the video, and presumably all you say is, "I'm sorry, but this is obviously not the job for you. I'm afraid we're going to have to let you go."
I bet that doesn't happen.
What is the? I bet you it doesn't too. I bet you they'll say, "Oh no, the police force must become diversified." What does that mean? I mean, I just it beggars belief, to be quite honest. I suppose there's one thing, at least the at least the traffic cops don't seem to have lost their power and persuasion.
Well, you don't see them much, do you, anymore?
I always do. They're always behind me for some reason.
But I mean, the thing is, Peter, they made redundant a load of older, experienced police, didn't they, a few years ago, and when they really needed them.
Absolutely, and the trouble is, frontline policing now, or what is often called response policing, is a terribly demanding job, which you don't get rewarded financially very well for, but that's often not the issue. The other issues are it's become such a job that seems so far down the pecking order of the police hierarchy that it's not a job that has any kudos anymore. And of course, the risk of getting seriously injured is more present than ever. So experienced cops don't want to do it, which is why you have probationer teaching probationer how to do the job, and they're utterly unprepared for it. Back in my day, and I don't want to sound too much like a dinosaur, but as PCs, we had our own pecking order. So an officer who had 20 years experience would be driving the area car. That's the blue lights and two-ton car. A slightly 15 or 10-year experienced cop would drive the van, and a 5-year cop would be driving the panda car. All the rest of us were out wearing out our shoe leather. There was a pecking order. Experience was valued, treasured, regarded as something that gave you some seniority. And I'm afraid so much as that has just disappeared.
They seem like security guards, don't they, a bit more? They used to be separate to security guards, police. They used to be like another level, but now they just seem like almost like the private security guards you see around.
Well, they've become a one-stop shop for all of society's ills. Yeah. I was lucky enough to be a cop back in the day when essentially it was a job of cops v robbers, good guys and bad guys. We didn't have to deal with a mental health issue, for example. We didn't have
You shouldn't have to do that anyway. That is not the job of the police. We have to have people who do that. I'm sorry, Peter, but that is not their job to look after mental health problems.
It's the care in the community, isn't it?
It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And here's a story. Apparently, some graduates who joined the police walked out when they found they had to do self-defense training. They just walked out and said, no, this is not the job for me.
Well, good. It's not for them.
Then it beggars the question, what was the recruitment process? Yeah. You know, what were these people expecting to walk into? What kind of fluffy worlds had they inhibited if they actually thought that there was no requirement for self-defense training for a police officer? It's utterly ludicrous.
And the kids on the street get a feel for that, and they realise that the police have lost their authority over the last 5 to 10 years.
Look how many stabbings, knife
openly,
attacks,
they do a lot of openly.
Drug gangs amongst youngsters in city centres all over this country, not just in the capital, not just in the main cities, but some of the small towns, even the villages. There are no police. They are impotent. Unless they happen to be walking along and tell you should be wearing a mask. That seems to be there.
Hundreds of police stations have been closed. Tens of thousands of police officer jobs have been lost. And as you say, society has become much less deferential. And policing appears to be so fluffy on so many occasions that, as Ash rightly points out, the errant kids pick up on that and exploit it.
Yeah, absolutely. One last question. Is it Theresa May's fault or not?
Well, Theresa May wasn't very much liked by the police. She was a pretty catastrophic Home Secretary for the cops and not any better as a Prime Minister. So much of the tide of teenage blood that flows through the streets of our nation should actually lead its way to her door, sadly.
Now, just before we go, you want to get a little bit of publicity for this walk you're doing. And as you're such a nice man and talk to us on Talk Radio so often, we would love to invite you to do just that.
33,000 steps a day.
Thank you. You are very kind. Everybody at the station is very kind to allow me to do this. Yes, I'm currently embarking on my own charity fundraising challenge, which is to walk 1 million steps in May. So that's nearly 33,000 steps every day, or 15.5 miles with my stride length. And for a 61-year-old bloke who's like to pie and a pint too much in his life, that really is a very physically demanding thing. Today, of course, is day 19. I've now walked over 650,000 steps in 19 days. I'm raising money for a wonderful charity called Support After Murder and Manslaughter. And they are there for the forgotten people, the people who are bereaved by murder and manslaughter. And they provide wonderful services to people in their very, very darkest hour. And I would urge anybody who would be kind enough to perhaps donate £1 or maybe a few pounds would be brilliant, to please go to givepenny.com and type in 1 million steps, and there you will be able to make a donation and help people who so desperately need that help.
Peter, thank you very much indeed. I'll get Ash to do just that.
It's on the screen as well, that is.
Yeah, and Ash will do that for us. Ash will donate some money right now. Peter, 61, I mean, you're a child, aren't you? Don't play the old man card. When you get to my age, you can do that. Thank you very much indeed.